Hi, thank you for joining me today on my channel. I appreciate you stopping by. Now today's video, I'm going to show you how to take history, stuff that we learn from the historical writers and historical sources, and we can apply it to our own contemporary needs. Now specifically today, I'm looking into and deep diving into what a scout would carry in the early 20th century. Now you might be thinking, well, Mr. Dyer, scouts were kids. How is that going to help me? Well, truth of the matter is, whether it be scouts or Horace Kephart or even Nesmith, all these guys, they talk about things that you want to take on a hike. Now, what the scouts did really well is that they tried to break things down for scouts to carry on their belt. And along with this whole idea that a scout is always prepared and you need to have things that you can get to right away in case of an emergency, because that was a big thing in early 20th century scouting, is not only being able to go out and camp and cook and have a good time, but also be able to help others. That's part of the scout motto, do a good turn daily. So today we are going to take a look at a historical scouting kit. Now the difference is this equipment can be kind of heavy, especially most notably flashlights. We have come such a long way when it's come to flashlights. Now, if you want any information about these specific things, I've actually done a video on every single one of these last year. So you can go back and you can look at my Campcraft video series and it'll be in there, okay? So this is a flashlight. Now it's an angle flashlight. You can do Morse code with it and all that stuff, but it is very heavy. So our modern flashlights, we can shed a lot of ounces, a lot of weight with just that. This weighs about 1.5 pounds. We're using double D's. Next, we have a belt, we have a rope. Now, scouts did a lot of stuff with rope. Now, this is called the scout guard rope. Specifically, it's about 7 foot. No, take it back. It's 15 foot of rope. And on each end, you have a clip and you have a D-ring. Now, the purpose of it is so you could deploy this for anything that you might need. Maybe you need to put something up. For rescue operations, it's really handy, especially when you have other scouts in a group. You can combine the ropes, and now you have a rescue rope that's significantly longer, and you can use it to help people out. They also use it for parades so that each scout would have their ropes and stretch it out amongst themselves to keep crowds back, things like that. But it is just a rope, right? I do like the function of having a clip and a ring on one end to quickly use it for whatever I need. Next, we have the pouch that has the sharpening stone. Now, a nice thing about having your sharpening stone close at hand is if you need to sharpen your knife or your hatchet, you can quickly take this out, touch it up, and you're good to go. So I think that's pretty nice. It's not taking up space in your pocket. Next, we have our first aid kit. On this side, we have all of our cutting tools. Now, this is just how I like to carry it. You do whatever is most comfortable to you, because this is a lot of weight on one side. And here we have our pocket knife. Now, the pocket knife has a bail on it, so it has that wire, so you can hook it onto a belt hook. You can slip this in your pocket, and it's not going to fall out. It's not going to get lost. I think that's a brilliant idea. We have our sheath knife here, and then we have our hatchet. Now, later on, the Boy Scouts actually came out with a hatchet knife combo. So you'd have your hatchet, and then you'd also have your sheath knife all in one sheath. Okay, so what can we do to modernize this equipment? Well, some things that hasn't really become too modern compared to our times. It's a pocket knife. Now, pocket knife's a very personal choice. I still like having a bail. Now, if you don't have a bail, you just slip it in your pocket. But if you don't have one of these little clips, all you have to do is just take some twine or rope or paracord or whatever, tie a loop around that, make it a cinch knot, and keep that in your pocket that way. That way it's easy to get to. Same thing with a sheath knife. Not a whole lot's changed there. Get one that suits you and your needs. And a hatchet. Now, a lot of people prefer not to carry their hatchets on their belt, because if you fall, it can be kind of cumbersome. It can hurt you, things like that. A lot of people carry their hatchets now on slings, which I think is fantastic. I actually like slings a lot. This is a lot of weight, and if you put that around a belt, it does tend to weigh it down a lot. You might start looking like a Western movie star carrying this around because one side is going to be pitched up more than the other. So I suggest not actually having this on your belt. I mean, I still do because that's what I got. But you can take a hatchet and get yourself a super long belt, or a couple belts, and attach them to each other, and you can actually create a sling just using the same belt loop. So that's something that we can do to modernize it and make it a little bit more comfortable and possibly even a little bit safer going out to the woods with it. But having that on your person when you're going out in the woods and you know you're going to be setting up your camp, doing a little bit of bushcraft stuff, or making tent pegs, things like that, then your hatchet right then and there is pretty nice. If you're going on a long hike though, and you got a ways before you're going anywhere, you're not planning on using it, then I would stow it in your backpack, just like what I explained last week in last week's video. Now, first aid kit. I think having a first aid kit on your belt in your person close by is still pretty important. So even if you don't have a first aid kit that's going on your belt, putting in something in your pocket, I think is pretty nice. Okay, so here's all the historical things. Now I'm going to show you the modern substitutes or modern ways or some ideas you can use on the cheap, like super, super cheap. And I think all of us can relate to that, all right? Okay, before we dive into the modern equivalent, if you've liked this video, if you found it useful or interesting, could you please go ahead and click the like button? That way other people find it. You'll be doing them a favor and helping them out as well. We really appreciate it, and so will they. All right, so as far as the modern stuff, we can make this as simple as you possibly can. And I've got some examples that I've literally just rummaged around the house, just to try to give you hopefully an idea, maybe even some motivation to just look around your house and try to find modern equivalents. Because we get caught up in trying to get all this gear and stuff. But there's stuff laying around our house that we can use in place of the commercialized stuff, okay? Now, maybe it's just because I'm, almost hitting my 40s. Maybe that's why I got so much stuff just laying around. But one example that I'll give you is this here. I got rid of my car, and for some reason I always keep things that I think looks useful. So the car was going to a junkyard. I grabbed this bag, which had my owner's manual in it, and 2 slits on the back, that way I can put it on a belt. It opens up and it has some various things in here that's the equivalent of this, okay? And this is some cheap survival bracelet, and on it I have my paracord. It's about 50 feet of it on here, so that's a tremendous amount of paracord that has just the same amount of strength as this. Now granted, it doesn't have those clips and stuff, but if you're wanting cord for an emergency situation, then there we have this. There's a couple other little doodads on it that makes it useful. And this is the very first pouch that I bought years ago when I got into living history. I saw it, it was cheap, as a kid. It was right there in my price range, and I snatched it up. And I keep some things in here. All right, so we have our flashlight, we have our first aid kit, we have our rope. So in this bag, what I have is I have my flashlight and my headlamp. Now, I suggest people getting the headlamp, and this is not an expensive one. This is like a $20 headlamp from Walmart. It's a Coleman, and it's lasted me 2 years without changing any of the batteries. I use it a lot. It has 3 features on it that I suggest that you get though. One is a bright feature, one is a dim feature, which is probably what you're going to use most of the time, and the red light feature. The red light's really nice for night vision because I can turn this on when I'm going to the bathroom or just looking around camp or something, and when I turn it off, I don't lose my night vision. Somebody who wears glasses, vision is very important to me. So this is really cool. I suggest you get something like this. Again, it's like 20 bucks if I remember right when I got it a couple years ago. Prices might went up. I have my first aid kit. Now, per first aid kit, you should adapt to your specific needs and your specific situation and where you are going. So it depends on how deep in the woods I plan on going or what I plan on doing any particular weekend, things might come out or go in here. For example, poison ivy tallets. We get a lot of poison ivy here in Ohio, and right now it is rampant. So that might go in here if I'm going into the deep woods, especially if I'm not wearing pants, if I'm wearing shorts, which isn't very often. But in here, if I open it up, because I do have glasses, I have a glasses repair kit. Now, if you take medications, then you might want to put your medications in a Ziploc bag or a little Altoid tin or something like that. Take that along with you. I have a couple Band-Aids, just very basic Band-Aids, a couple different sizes. I have body powder, because here in Ohio, the humidity and it gets so muggy, like you just want to take care of that if you have to. I have a pair of tweezers. Now this is a really cool pair that I found probably at Walmart too, and it has a little flashlight on it. So not only do you have an emergency flashlight, but if you are trying to deal with taking off ticks or splinters, it's really hard to see, then this is pretty nice. Medical tape. Now, medical tape has 150 uses. Like you can use this for so much more than just attaching or reattaching a bandage or something like that. Even the old historical writers like Horace Kephart and Nesmith and Edward Cayce and all those guys, they wrote about using medical tape for various things like sealing their cans or their jars or making repairs on their field equipment. Just so much you can do with this. Your mind is your only limit. I have a large bandage. I have water purification tablets just in case. I have a almost completely empty container of Neosporin. Band-Aid and diaper rash cream. If you know, you know. And a couple the Q-tips. So we have our flashlight and our first aid kit in this bag here. And there still was room I could put other things. It even has this little handy dandy net thing that I can use for some odds and ends. The rope, the cordage or something is really nice to have. Even if you're deploying a tarp or something because the rain's coming down, or you're making a field repair. When I use my haversack as a backpack, a lot of times I'll have to take a piece of rope and cinch it in just a little bit closer to my chest so it rides a little bit better. Just having something on hand real quick is pretty useful. In this little bag, I have my sharpening puck. Now this is a contemporary sharpening puck. You can get antique sharpening stones. The Corabundum sharpening stones are so nice. Like honestly, it's not my bias coming out. I promise you, as much stuff that I sharpen, from straight razors to pocket knives and sheath knives and stuff, these pucks, I could take it or leave it. The Corabundum stones, like this one here, this old Scout Corabundum stone, I don't know what it is about it, but these sharpen at least carbon tools. These old tools, so much better and faster than these do. I don't know what it is. Could have something to do with metallurgy or something else. I know from sharpening straight razors, certain razors react differently to different hones and things. Maybe that's what's going on. But if you can find yourself a Corabundum sharpening stone that's pretty small, it's so much lighter than these large pucks. Now, I'll take one of these large pucks when I go on a weekend camp out, and I'll keep it in my car or something. So if I do need to make a major repair, it's right there and it can get the job done. But when I'm just touching up my edges, something like this, it's perfect. And it's so light. All right, so anyhow, there's a little bag for that sharpening stone. So we've got everything that's covered. We've got a flashlight, we've got our rope, we got our first aid kit. Now some things that are never going to change are your edge tools. So, having some type of axe or hatchet, maybe you prefer to take a little silky saw or something like that. That's all well and good. I'm an axe guy. I like having a hatchet. Knife, a sheath knife, and a pocket knife. Now you can get pretty decent knives for low cost. You can get an old Hickory knife. You can go and get a Moore knife. Like, there's a lot of knives out there that are really cheap that are really good quality knives that will get you going out camping and bushcrafting and stuff like that. You don't need to spend a ton of money. And I guarantee if you go to an antique store, you will be able to find old, high quality carbon steel pocket knives that will last you a long time. And the nice thing about carbon steel is they're easy to maintain compared to stainless steel. Now you'll have to wipe them down with some oil and keep them lubed up and stuff, but if you need to sharpen something, these take such a less amount of time compared to stainless steel knives. So there's my 2 cents in regards to that. But if you do get a modern knife, try to get one with a bail. You know, something like that. Or even the Swiss Army knives, they got those little key ring type rings. Even something like that's pretty handy. Take some of your paracord, tie a knot on it, put it on your belt loop or your belt, put it in your pocket. That way, if you're doing something, you know, if it drops, you're not going to lose it. So there's some good hints and tips from the old scouts and how not to do that. Kids especially, they lose so much. And in regards to a belt, choice of belt. Now, this is something I didn't discuss last year. So, bonus tip, if you're still with me. Having a belt that is a friction belt, like this. This is a World War, right before World War II. I mean, the same style of belt and all that. But this is like 1930s World War, between World War I and World War II belt. This friction belt is really nice in case you do need to use it as a tourniquet, or in case you do need to use it in another type of emergency situation, or you're lashing something together. You don't have to worry about putting holes in your belt with something like this. So having a friction belt, a really nice friction belt, you can get them super cheap on secondhand and GID post stores and stuff like that. Those are really nice. So I suggest you get one of those. Now, I promised you some ideas that you can outfit yourself in storage containers that are cheap. Visit your Salvation Army or your Goodwill or your other thrift shops. Keep an eye out when you go yard sailing this summer. Even just going through your parents' or grandparents' stuff, see if they've got bags, whether it be old purses or old bags, old things like this just laying around, even pocket purses, stuff like that. You can adapt to making a belt kit or using it even for storage to throw in your backpack. It's pretty handy. You know, I could put this stuff in there and this is going to be pretty waterproof. That's pretty nice, you know. Didn't have to spend anything more for it. It was already lying around. Cut a couple slits in there, and if you know how to sew, you know, do a buttonhole stitch around it, and now you have yourself a belt kit. Pretty easy, right? Pretty cheap. So if you like this stuff, if you like what I've shown you, please click like, that way other people find it and it helps them out. Please leave me a comment or a story. I always appreciate those. It means a lot to me getting to talk back and forth with you all. I really do. Next week, you're going to want to hit subscribe and hit the notification button, because next week I'm going to show you how to cook on a Theros mess kit. Now, here's the thing with the Theros mess kits. They don't make them anymore, so I can't even point you in the right direction of getting a reproduction. Maybe someday I'll find someone who's able to reproduce it. But there are similar kits out there, and if you go to my website, www.honorableoutfitters.com, I actually found a kit on there that's very similar to the Theros mess kit. So if nothing else, you can adapt it, you know, and pretty much do the same thing. But if you haven't watched the Theros video I did at the beginning of last month, check that out, because it has the history and stuff, and I'm going to I show you all the different parts and pieces and some other ideas that you can use it with. But what's really cool is that they advertise that you can cook an entire meal in about 10 minutes. So next week, we're going to test that out. I'm actually going to try cooking coffee, cooking soup, and warming up beans, and seeing how all that does in 10 minutes time on this kit. I haven't done it yet. You know, I've cooked other things on it, but I haven't done that yet. I've been saving it just for you guys. So hit the notification button. That way you guys don't miss it next Sunday. So if you want to see the Theros kit, you should check this one out here. If you want to check out the original belt video that I did last summer, then you want to check it out right here. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss onto your loved ones, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.